All right. We are about 52 seconds here to rolling out of the pen. This is Jason Flores. We are in the feed zone, and we're going to go ahead and get started here in just a moment, and then we will get our broadcast underway. But thanks for joining us today. We are 40 seconds. We've got about just under 20 riders here in the pen. I want to remind everybody the pace here. Make sure everyone is where they need to be. Looking good. All right, we'll get everyone grouped out and we'll go ahead and get started on our talk here. And here we go. Nice, easy, and steady. All right, we are underway. All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening out there, wherever you are. I just wanted to say thanks for joining us today in the feed zone. Today, we're coming to you from the London course with a group of riders here, and we will be riding out here on the Zwift platform. If you haven't heard of this platform before, definitely check it out. You can check it out at Zwift.com. It's a way for you to ride your bike set up on a trainer and be able to ride around with your friends virtually and in real life. So you could see the game playing in the bottom right here. And I will be doing it today, a presentation on some food and hydration and some different things that from week to week, actually. So really quick introduction. My name is Jason Flores. I go by JFlow here on Zwift. So if you see me riding around, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I'll give you a thumbs up back. And we can definitely get connected here online. Before we get going, a quick medical disclaimer that the only purpose of this live stream is to educate and to inform. It's not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified professional, and that it's provided on the understanding that it doesn't constitute medical or professional advice or services. So the goals of the live stream today are kind of dual-fold. That's to present articles in the media covering hydration and how it relates to endurance sports. So being on the bike and the different things you can do or different things you can try to make it so that you're able to maximize your performance and your training as well. So let's see. So today's topic is actually pretty interesting, and it comes from the Hunter Allen Power blog, excuse me, and we're going to be talking about nutrition in and off the season, in the off season, excuse me. But before we get started on that, today you can actually listen to this live stream live. If for those that are listening live, thank you and welcome. For those who would like to watch it after, you can head to Zwift Live by ODZ on Facebook, or you could actually head to your favorite podcast app and search for The Endurance Lab. And you can find in the feed zone, along with our other presentations and podcasts like What's Up with Power with Justin Wagner, as well as Chat and Chill with ITFZ, as well as Coach's Corner, which are the coaches of the Endurance Lab, speaking about and talking about the different things that are happening in the Endurance Lab. So definitely check that out. If you have any questions, let us know. I will be bringing up the live stream here in just a moment. So if you have any live questions, we can go from there. But we're going to delve into the type of nutrition or what your nutrition should look like during the off season. So this is a big question that we get as coaches, and things that we are able to address and kind of make our athletes think about. So if you just kind of think about what you've been doing in the past couple weeks, as a lot of our riders here in the online realm and world, and even here in the Northern Hemisphere, things are starting to cool off, and we're able to start getting more of those colder nights, and either headed to the trainer for work you know, doing that on the bike training in that respect, or thinking about having an off season here, which is what we recommend as coaches. Not necessarily complete time off the bike, but in fact maybe just making sure that you're taking a decrease in intensity that allows you to take some of that stress off of the body, and allows you to just let the mental part of your you know, riding as well as the physical part take a rest. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that and the different things that we can kind of add to that could be useful, or could be some tips that we can use moving forward. So kind of a quick overview of the things that we can that we'll be talking about today is one, just, you know, in the off season is the overall thing. What should we do? What is the direction that we can take? And essentially, how you could essentially eat less during this off season and not completely starve, because you'll be coming off a part of the season where you'll be eating such a large amount, and what you're not going to want to do is to make it so that you're feeling not nourished. So it will be important, like in our second point here, to keeping the quality of the food that you're putting in. And then how can we make nutrients count? So these are kind of the three topics. We're going to just really have a conversation here. I'm going to go a little bit over what the Hunter Allen group had talked about, as well as some of my own anecdotes with athletes that I've had and experienced. So we can go from there. So again, one of the questions that we have from riders, or just from the general population, is how do things change as the road season ends? Questions come up like, how do we indulge in, you know, celebratory foods with Thanksgiving and Christmas just around the corner? How does that change the type of foods that we're eating? Should we be eating the same way as if we're doing our intense rides as we would normally, or should we be eating less overall? That comes into question. And then, are there specific changes in the nutritional needs during this transition period and then approaching into our off season? So first, you actually need you could easily take a step back and then talk about to answer questions of different factors of what level during the season are you actually training. You know, are you doing, you know, anywhere from 5 to 10 hours a week, 10 to 15, or 15 plus hours a week is what we need to look at. So the question becomes, do you hang up the bike in the off season, replace it with other activities like lifting weights, strength exercises? Are you going to go running, doing something more recreational? So if in fact you are, you know, more amateur and more of an enthusiast than anything, you will be looking at possibly doing like a rest for a couple weeks, and then starting up with some sort of base plan possibly, or even back to, you know, a 48-week, you know, training plan for your next A race next year possibly. So, and then the other ideas of goals of are you trying to lose weight? But really, regardless of your answer, you are going to want to reduce intensity, meaning you're not going to be wanting to race as many races as you race during the year. And then you want to make sure that just the intensity overall, you're not feeling as tired and as drained and that sort of thing. So for our purposes here, let's assume that we are looking at cutting back on the hours from the type of training that you're doing. And that's going to be for like the next couple months as we kind of ramp ourselves back. It'll give us kind of a long run to the season. For a lot of the athletes here and the ones that I train, they typically race anywhere from February to November. That only really gives 2 or 3 months where things are kind of more in the off season, and then we start to ramp up into the season as the year turns. So doing things that are kind of off the bike and more fun, riding, like doing trail riding, just fun, more relaxed riding, running, and doing some resistance training can definitely make a difference. So, you know, the first question people ask, you know, obviously we use carbohydrates as a fuel. The question comes up, should we be cutting out the carbohydrates during our workouts, or just in our normal in our normal routine of what we do. And the question is, I think certainly not. And the article does agree. I do agree with that we are active athletes. So we want to make sure that we are getting still good recovery for the rides that we're doing. We're getting a good glycogen or carbohydrate replenishment. So keeping those are important, but then using them kind of strategically when you do have longer rides, because you will need them. And then the other thing that comes into question is if you were going to be doing any muscle work, meaning like strength growth, and these are the sort of things. And if you're trying to gain a little bit muscle in the off season, you're definitely going to need the carbohydrates to support that growth over time. So making sure that that is available. So adding these, making sure you have those vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and so forth from carbohydrates are super important. So as we cut back for the online racing season, as well as the in real, life racing season, cutting back this volume and intensity to reduce, we just need to consider reducing the grams per kilogram of the carbohydrates. Not saying that we should not have any carbohydrates, but just a conscious amount to decrease the grams per kilogram, depending on the athlete, and also reduce some of those grams of fat as well. So thinking caloric load overall. So essentially, remember that we're not asking riders to go completely low fat, but just balance things out as we reduce the overall strain or the overall amount that we're looking to put into the body. So without the races, the long, intense training sessions, the loading that we do from day to day for carbohydrate in, let's say, mid-season or as we approach our A rides, will actually fall, meaning we won't be doing that in our nutrition plan. So you might drop from anywhere from like 7 grams per kilogram of carbohydrates down to something like 4 grams per kilogram, especially on rest days and short aerobic rides. But your long weekend rides, you're doing your 100K rides on the weekend with the group, you're still going to need to adequately put the carbohydrates in and replenish as you start to ramp back after the fall. So again, reducing intensity and duration, yes. You should also reduce your carbohydrate intake accordingly. On the days that you're doing those longer rides, you need to make sure that you are fueling for those. But a lot of the days will be rest days, and then taking those things into consideration. So it brings us to our first point of the conversation, which is how to eat less and not starve, because we'll be coming off a time where we're constantly trying to refill our glycogen stores from workout to workout. Let's say you're working out anywhere from 4 to 5 times a week. You're looking at refilling that a good amount from day to day, making sure that the body's not low on carbohydrates. So it could be difficult because all of a sudden your body's used to putting this amount of food, calories, and energy in, and then all of a sudden we're dropping to this now lower amount because the races aren't there and the hunger actually just doesn't turn off. So it does take some time to adjust. And that's where the idea of a transition period from your race season into your off season can be important. And this is that time where the schedule for our athletes is a lot looser. It's where riders are able to kind of just do what they feel. If they feel like being off the bike, they can be off the bike. If they feel like doing social rides with their friends and that sort of thing, we encourage that as coaches. So it can definitely leave kind of a limbo area where if you are used to structured training, but for a lot of riders, it allows a mental break to kind of bring back kind of the fun of riding just to go ride. So for them, during the off season, a lot of times, if you continue to eat or to fuel as if you're in season, this can definitely lead to gaining weight in the off season as it goes, and not typically a great idea. We're talking a couple, pounds here or there. You're looking anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds, not a problem. If it's getting up between 10, 15, 20 pounds, it could make your fall definitely more difficult as you go into the next in season, trying to take that off before you go back into a full-blown season ride. The whole training part of things could be definitely difficult because you'd be trying to burn candles, essentially what we call at 2 ends, and trying to get everything kind of dialed in. So instead, what we recommend, and there were some good recommendations here that I'll bring to the forefront, is that there's some food swaps that can help us during this time. Mainly, you're looking at nutrient-dense foods, but that are lower in calories, but still are able to fill you. And so things that you wouldn't have normally eaten in the race season, you would actually find yourself having and being able to enjoy. And I'll give you some examples here. So let's quickly switch over to that chart, and we can take a look at that. And so what we're looking at on the left-hand side here is we're looking at things that are nutrient-dense, high-calorie carbohydrates that we would typically use during in-season or training. And then on the opposite side, what we're seeing is nutrient-dense, low-calorie foods and carbohydrates that we could use kind of in this part of the season that allow us to maximize our goals, or just reach our goals, essentially lower calorie but still filling. So for example, dates, high glycemic index, high amount of carbohydrate, and that sort of thing, you can easily switch out with other fruits, things like strawberries, strawberries, cantaloupe, and other fruits. For potatoes, you could easily switch over to squash, sweet potatoes. You can easily make soups and things out of things like that. Your white rice, one of my great go-tos. Moving over to like a cauliflower, an asparagus, or broccoli, or I really like cauliflower as a substitute here because you can easily get it shredded up and get to the same consistency as rice. Looking at fruit juices, moving over from that to vegetable juices. And then looking at things like granola and dried fruit, and maybe switching over to oat and wheat berries, just something a little bit less spiking there. Going over from the maple syrup as the high level fuel, again over to some other just real fruits that could help. And things like rice pasta, if you are using that, moving over to things like spaghetti, squash, or zucchini. And if you've never tried that, it's definitely interesting. It's essentially swapping out your pasta noodles for a vegetable like a spaghetti squash or a zucchini, spiraled up to make it look and feel and have the mouthfeel taste of a noodle, which is actually pretty interesting. We do that quite a bit at the house. It's definitely a fun treat for my toddler to make those noodles as well. So yeah, so these are definitely some good changes or good swaps that we could have in our training. On this side of things, you can still fuel with these things on the right hand side here, meaning that we don't need to go to these bigger hitters, but we can still get the carbohydrates in that we need to do our off-season work from this right side column. So yes, going back to our points here, keeping the quality. So again, the overall kind of theme is that you may have noticed that both lists have good nourishing foods, and if you notice that they're actually all actually real foods, meaning that they're not packaged foods. They're things that you get in the produce section of the grocery store and that sort of thing. Because the off season is a great time to have like I was saying earlier, things that you don't normally have. Doing those salads that you don't normally want that much fiber during workouts and that sort of thing. So go enjoy those things, seasonal things, and skipping the heavy duty stage races and long races. We're not needing to make sure we get this huge bowl of rice or these carbohydrates through our workouts and like post-workout fuel and that sort of thing. So definitely, mindset of transition here is what we're looking at. And if you haven't tried, like I was mentioning, like the spaghetti squash or the zucchini noodles, definitely something trying out, because you're looking at a cup of traditional pasta having around 220 calories. And then you're looking at spaghetti squash having a quarter of that, about 50 calories. So, but still getting the same fill factor with that. So you can have twice the volume of the squash and even actually more, and still get the nutrients that you would normally get, but less of the caloric intake, and still feel pretty full. So another place where you could actually get a good win as far as bang for the buck for the quality is actually broccoli, and it's got plenty of vitamins and it's super filling. So adding just vegetables more than we normally would. A lot of times my athletes have trouble getting in these greens during the mid of a season, just because they are so used to, or so a lot of the times trying to make sure that they get the carbohydrate fill that they need. So it's definitely a time where we can shift, and you can still get that carbohydrate that you need for the off-season workouts that you have. You know, if you're doing, you know, sub-threshold work or you know, muscular endurance work, those are things that we can definitely work on. So making nutrients count. Remember that when it comes to athletes, we need to look again that we were talking earlier about grams per kilogram of carbohydrate and proteins. So as the season tapers down, what you'll find is that we can lower the grams per kilogram, but it's still important to have the carbohydrate stores that you need for training. So you're just going to be shifting where you're getting them from. And I'll bring up that chart here again at the very end. But really, the one thing that I want to make sure that take home today is that you keep your protein levels similar, just because that's the one thing that's going to keep things keep things going. It's going to keep you feeling full. It's going to keep your body in a good homeostasis or balance, knowing that it's not starving, because you don't want that either at this point. You do want to, if you do have goals of decreasing weight and that sort of thing during this time, it's the time to do it, but it's in a way that you want to do kind of slow, maintain, and something that you'll be able to continue to do over time. And so the focus is just how to lower these strategically without feeling that you're starving all of a sudden compared to how you were in the in season. So essentially, you want to choose things that are super filling, that are low calorie carbohydrate changes, like we have in our chart here, and making sure that you get enough to support your performance in the off season. So yeah, the conversation again, it just comes to, I'd like us to take the time to make a shift in the way that we're thinking. So as we move into the fall, but that it's not that we want to get off on all sources of carbohydrates. We just want to do a reduction in them and increasing the other parts, and just giving our body a chance to have other type of nutrients that we don't typically have during the rest of the season. You can still sustain a quality training routine, but it just has to be understanding that it's going to be a lower intensity and a lower volume. And so, like I said earlier, it's normal to put on a few pounds during this off season, because you're not constantly got this couple thousands calories worth of burn off that you do on your 1 to 2 hour workouts per day. But we just don't want that to creep up to 10, 15, 20 pounds, because your late winter could be very difficult trying to get that off. So save yourself the trouble, making some simple changes as we head into the fall here, and just taking the time to have more fun, to do more rides that are more socialized, and a chance, because a lot of times as athletes, as riders that do a lot of structured training, or as you look for that next edge, it can definitely be isolating in a place where things can be very social, especially here on the platform. You can easily chat, whether it be in text or on voice Discord. You can talk to other riders, so definitely use that to your advantage. So just bringing up the table here before we go, we can bring that up to get a couple more tips. But yeah, I mean, you can come back to here. I will post the link to the actual article here from the Hunter Allen Power blog. He's got some really good posts. I definitely think we can bring a couple of these to light. So the conversation comes here today, not so much that you should be changing kind of everything that you're doing, but I just wanted to bring up the information so that you can make, again, an informed decision. And that's what we do here in the Feed Zone. Bring you the information so that you could you can make an informed decision about the choices you make. So as you go into the off season, making some shifts to these low calorie carbohydrate sources, but still making sure that you are getting carbohydrate sources in, could be very, very important, and could be critical to your off season and your transition period, or that time in between as you get ready for the next part of the season. So definitely keep those things in mind, and keep those things as you do and structure your training and work with your coaches, and making sure that you're fueling and getting what you need into the body as you move forward. So with that, I've got the link to our article here at the Hunter Allen Power blog. Yeah, the full link is there, and so we'll be able to use that. If you'd like to, I will also put that into the show notes here, as well as on the post. If you have any questions here, It's a little bit quiet here on Facebook Live, but if you have any questions here on Discord as well, I'm more than happy to answer those. But yeah, so just a conversation about nutrition, off-season, and the changes that you're making, I think is what we're posing here today in the feed zone, and trying to make an informed decision and make a plan. The same way you would plan for any of your workouts, the same way that you would plan for what you're going to do and what you're going to eat during in season, like the day before a race. Take that same consciousness and put that in with trying to make some decisions, some good decisions on how you want to fuel your off season as well, and understanding and taking some anchors like from today's talk and how you can use those moving forward to be able to get the fuel in that you need to do your off-season work, that base work, as well as still enjoy not going out and just hammering it every single time you go out on a ride. All right, so like I said, pretty quiet here on Zwift Live today and the comments, but thank you for everybody who listened in. And if you missed this and just joining us now, you could definitely watch the replay of the live stream. But if not, go to your favorite podcast app, search for the Endurance Lab. You'll find this in the feed zone, along with many, many other great podcasts and episodes across the board all throughout the week. So definitely join us there. If you haven't checked out Zwift, check out Zwift at Zwift.com. Check out the platform. Join us. Look for Team ODZ on there, and that's where you'll find me and the rest of the team. And with that, we've just got a couple minutes more here in the live ride, and I want to thank everybody for joining in and everyone watching. If you have any questions, let us know, and I will see you next week in the feed zone.